family. Today's today's news is that my son Lior, who's on the call, his girlfriend Liad has been in Israel. She's Israeli and has been there working on for the last month and a half, and she called up. I also got word, unfortunately, that some close friends of one of my wife's first cousins, who we know, were just been confirmed as kidnapped, and they had a caretaker was found. And I know everybody has stories like this, but despite all this, I've been inspired how these Israelis keep moving forward, helping in any way. We've been fielding calls and texts from friends and family here. On the other hand, we've heard much silence from too many, and not enough condemnation of the injustice which have politics and statehood, Israel and Jews and anyone that gets in the way, including their own people. I was just at a vigil in Princeton, and one of the speakers quoted Einstein on this topic, and Einstein's quote is that the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. And I think that's an amazing point here. And so before turning this over to David, I do want to make one point. My wife, Riva, who actually, just as a side note, David Blatt was with me the night that I met my wife, along with Pete Carrill in Tel Aviv. She is from northern Israel, Kibbutz Endor, which was founded by her parents, who were Americans, other Americans, and a group of Holocaust survivors from Eastern Europe seeking life and freedom from persecution. Other similar groups of idealistic people founded the kibbutzim near Gaza, which has been sort of ground zero for Hamas's barbarity. You've seen all the images on TV and social media. I note that these kibbutzim are located on lands that were part of the original United Nations grant of land to the state of Israel. They are not occupied territories, and these are peace-loving people, and their lives have been shattered. Kibbutz Be'eri, one of the most successful kibbutzim in Israel, has lost at least 100 people, with more unaccounted for, and entire families have been wiped out. If you haven't been to a kibbutz, it's basically like the closest knit small town that could possibly exist. And just imagine if 100 people from your closest circle of friends and family were murdered in one day, and others being held captive. So there's no words to describe this stuff. I want to close with a couple of words about my friend David. I'm not going to review his resume. You could look that up. I'll just say that there are not too many coaches on this planet that have such a record of sustained excellence as David, and that I strongly believe he warrants consideration for the Basketball Hall of Fame. On a personal note, he's been a wonderful friend to me since he hosted me on my recruiting trip to Princeton in 1981. And as a man, he's always used his platform to advocate for what is right and human. And I'm honored to introduce to you now my friend David Blatt.
Thank you, Howard. That's more than I deserve. I appreciate it. First of all, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be sitting in the forum with you, and as we go along, hopefully sharing ideas. I have no intention of talking at you. I really like to talk with you, but I want to give a brief introduction to things as I see them, according to today, motivate some of you or all of you to speak out on these issues, to make some parallel to the world that we all live in, outside of politics and current events, that being, of course, the basketball, and from there, see if together we can solve the problems of the world. Before we start, I've always had, well, I got a number of theories, but one of my biggest theories is that there are three problems facing mankind. The first is human hunger. The second is the threat of nuclear war. The third is finding a surefire solution to high pick and roll defense. I am not sure which of the three of those is the most or the least solvable. However, recent events have proven and have shown that we're faced with perhaps the greatest problem of all, and that is our threat to humanity. So I want to share with you something that I made. I want to discuss it myself just a little bit, and then I want to get your thoughts on it and your questions and any ideas that you may want to kick around. Matt did say, and Howard did as well, I promise all of you anytime to talk about different basketball-related concepts, and more than with you. Run a foul, and often they run a foul, so we're going to have to hear and adjust. Matt, you back? No,
you guys got me.
David,
You got me now.
Okay.
We can't trust a Yale guy.
I mean,
That's the
I
problem.
didn't want to say that. I didn't want to climb down the ladder, but that was the first thing in my mind. I got to be honest with you. Anyway, Matt, you want to show the piece that I put together for the guys and ladies and anyone else?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Fingers crossed this works.
My dear friends in the world of sport and beyond, your voices are strong. Your messages are heard. Your ideals are important to people. As a sportsman, please hear mine and speak up and speak out. What happened in Israel at the hands of terrorists is a crime against humanity. The intentional murder of innocent people numbering in the thousands, the maiming of thousands more, the horrific defilement of bodies of the dead, the visual celebration of these acts is simply disgusting. The taking of prisoners, women, children, elderly, and foreigners, these are war crimes and acts of monsters, not humans. While these events are unfolding, supporters of Hamas have cheered and defended these terrorists in the streets of London, Paris, New York, and on university campuses worldwide. People have justified Hamas's actions, and worse, some have claimed that these tragedies never happened. These words bring up chilling reminders of Holocaust denialism, that 6 million Jews were never gassed, burned, mutilated, and murdered in an effort to wipe out an entire race. This lack of humanity serves to feed these awful and dangerous extremist elements. We must stand up and fight. We must overcome this evil. If we don't, we all will suffer, sooner or later. I'm not naive. I understand that these coming days and weeks will not be easy. Israel has already begun its offensive against Hamas in Gaza, and many innocent people, foreigners, Israelis, Palestinians alike, will suffer. I fear this collateral damage. It's almost too scary to think about. I wish that we could find a way to sit down all together right now and solve the problems. But when you have a side that is invested in humanity and another side that doesn't have the same value for human life, and I'm talking about the violent extremists, amongst others, who attacked Israel on October 7th, there's no discussion to be had. Extremism and violence are a disease. We must eradicate this. Sometimes the only solution is to cut it out, regardless of how it affects other parts of your body. That sounds harsh, beyond harsh, but that is the reality now. So I appeal to all of my colleagues and fellow athletes and people worldwide. Speak up, speak out. And as some of you already have bravely continue, and you certainly have the right to disagree, but there is right and wrong in the world. There is an opportunity for change. Our voices are heard. Consider and make them so for the good of humankind.
You know, for some people that may be a little bit strong, but that's how I feel. And more than anything else, as an American Israeli, Jewish born and raised person, that's how I feel, and I feel the necessity to share that with as many people and in as many environments as I possibly can. These are tough times for all people, Jewish and non-Jewish. And I want to say thank you to all of the fine coaches and fine people who have joined us that aren't Jewish or aren't from Israel. I appreciate that. I appreciate your concern. I appreciate your caring. We're being confronted with an evil that affects our sensibilities, not only as Jews or Israelis, but as human beings. Belief in humanity and the right and wrong, both as a moral and ethical construct, as well as the way to live and prosper as a human race, is in the balance. These are real issues that cross all lines, all races and religions, all ideologies and geographic boundaries. Do we share this with our teams, with our players, with our schools, with our universities, and our professional environments? Can we draw parallels from our world of competitive sport, of teamwork, of caring for one another, of respect, of educating one another, of engaging in relevant dialogue and debate? I say yes. I say step forward. I say represent and be the best version of ourselves as coaches and mentors and community leaders. We can and should teach the importance of being a part of the world at large. Our players, administrators, and followers can only benefit from that. For me, communication within the team was always paramount. Talking on defense, motivating one another through encouragement and support, game planning, and critiquing, all these things meant a lot. What happens outside the line does too. It helps you understand one another better, respect each other on a human level. I'd really love to hear your guys' thoughts, fellas. I've thrown a lot of ideas at you. Again, I want to say that I appreciate just your sharing and your attention and more than anything else, your caring. I'm honored to be able to call myself today a member of this Jewish Coaches Association. I never had that benefit, and I lived and worked all over the world. There weren't that many Jewish people coaching in other parts of the globe. So for me, it's a thrill, and thanks for letting me be a part of this. But please, could I have any questions or any ideas that you want to kick around? And feel here for you, and willing and happy to spend as much time as you'd like.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, so if anybody has questions, there's a couple different ways we can do this. If you feel more comfortable typing your question in the chat, more than happy to read it on your behalf, or we can also ask questions anonymously if you feel more comfortable. If you like to ask a question and unmute yourself, just shoot me a message in the chat, let me know, and I can call on you and give you a chance to ask directly for Coach Blatt. But I wanted to start it off with Coach Scott Garson from Santa Clara. I believe he's in the car. I don't know if he is able to ask, but he had mentioned that he had some comments.
I pulled over so I can talk. First, I want to tell you, Coach Blatt, thank you so much for your leadership. And you know, I know I'm certainly you know, I've always looked up to you, and I'm so appreciative to be on this call with you. And thank you for your thoughts. And I just had some, honestly, not a question, but just some thoughts for the group that I thought may be pertinent based on what you just said. And your message has been said in different places I've been throughout the week about the fact that we have to speak up. We can't be silent in these times. It's important. What I've really found more so than anything is people just don't know what they don't know. I probably speak for most everyone in this group, I would think, when I tell you that my wife and I were just shocked by the people that were considered very close friends that never reached out for days and days and days. And, you know, I finally, speaking with a friend of mine who's not Jewish that lives in Idaho, and he told me, he said, Scott, you got to give people grace. Most people don't even understand there's the connection the way that we have to Israel. They just don't get it, and like everyone else, as Howard said at the beginning, I mean, we have family that have our friends that have 5 members of their family that are being held hostage right now. We have another member of our family who lost 3 of his best friends in the slaughter in the music festival. And people just don't understand what Hamas is and what their mission is and what's really going on in the Middle East. And so my thoughts are this, like, what can you do? Well, for example, there's I think most campuses now have a DEI group, or some sort of diversity, equity, inclusion group on campus, whether for the staff. For us, we have it for the staff and for the students. We have one in our athletic department. I showed up randomly. The meeting was available on Wednesday. It was voluntary to show up. There were 20 members of the staff in there. I'm the only Jew in the entire athletic department. And sure enough, like, normally I'm silent in those meetings. They usually have something to do with whether it be helping those from the transgender community or from the African American community or other indigenous peoples. And I'm never going to sit in there and feel like I'm the expert in that area. But of course, this turned to what's going on in Israel, and I was the resident expert, I guess. And I got the opportunity to really educate people. People had no idea. They didn't even know I was Jewish, 2/3 of the room. And I've worked here for almost 6 years, let alone the connection and the strife and the heartache that our family's been going through all week. So I encourage you to just continue to educate people that don't know, because people don't know what they don't know. Put information out there. Don't be afraid, to retweet things on social media that are factual, that are fact-based, and that are true. And those are my thoughts. And I apologize. I don't have a question, Coach Blatt. And I hope I'm not, grandstanding in any way here or taking anything away. Your words really resonated, and I appreciate it. And you're inspiring me and encouraging me for sure to continue to speak out, to continue to make sure that I go to rallies and I speak out and I talk to people and I educate people and get into these conversations so people understand what we're going through.
Thank you so much, man. That's what this is all about. Appreciate everything we say in Hebrew, kol milah b'sela, which means every word in stone. That's beautiful. Thank you.
So, Coach Blatt, one of the questions that came through in the chat, they say, can you please ask David, what are the best ways to support the people of Israel here in the States? Is it money, clothes, supplies, voices raised? We would like to do something here in Denver. And before you answer that, I also want to let everybody know, I just put in the chat, there's 3 charities that you probably already are familiar with: Magen David Adom, Friends of the IDF, and the Jewish National Fund. They're very popular, certainly vetted charities and causes that are a good place to start. I'm sure there's lots of other resources you can find, and I believe I sent some out via email earlier in the week as well to people on the mailing list, but we just wanted to share those for you. So take a look in the chat, and then Coach Blatt, if you have any other thoughts.
Well, what we just heard a moment ago is a very good place to start. So I'll just piggyback on that and add, one of the things about us as Jewish coaches is, we don't wear it on our sleeve, and it's not immediately evident in most cases. Sometimes, and I'm certainly not pointing a finger, sometimes we even shy away from the fact, or we don't want it talked about. I know that in the 7 different countries that I worked in, one of the things that I always ran into was they would write in the description of the team or on the scorecard, American coach. And I always used to make it a point to correct that. No, American Israeli coach. I wanted people to know where I was from. Or whenever I had the opportunity to speak on issues such as this, I made it a point to speak of it. And I would offer to all of you, and I certainly wouldn't demand it, but in your next press conference, make it a point to talk about this a little bit. Say, hey, this is going on in the world. This is important. It's not only important to me because I'm Jewish, it's important to humankind. And I think people need to be aware of it. Don't be afraid to step out and do that. Now, I'm going to tell you something else, people, and why I so value what it is that you're all doing and coming together and sharing and looking out for each other. You have to understand what's happening now in Israel. It's not only in Israel. It's happening in a lot of places, just on a much quieter and less obtuse way. You can be sure that at some point in some time, we're going to see some acts, some violent acts, and of course, we've all seen it in the United States here and there, but that are specific to this particular event that happened. And these things are going to be unfortunately showing up all over the world where groups of extremists, or even not extremists, just those that without knowledge are supporting the Palestinian people, thinking that the Palestinian people are necessarily including the Hamas, which for the most part they're not even, but people just aren't aware of it. But these things can happen in your own backyard. They can happen in France. They can happen and have happened in London. They can happen anywhere, and you all need to be aware of that, talk about it, and be and prepare other people for that. So, again, I can't force you, and I certainly don't expect you to do it because I said so. But I'd make mention of these events in your next press conference or in your next interview, and say, hey, this is important. This is something that's happening in the world. This is something that really ultimately affects everyone, affects humankind. And there are many, of course, ways to contribute, whether it be donations, whether it be just participating in events, whether it be reaching out to people that you know or don't even know, or making yourself available to people just to be able to talk, because that's something that's so important now. But you have what to do. You can do things. You can't solve all the problems, but just by making people aware of what's really going on there, there's great value.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach. All right, we have our next question. Go ahead, G.
Just kind of touching on what Scott said and with Coach Blatt and David, what you said. I think a big thing is talking to our players. These guys are maybe not educated enough about this. And this is something I made a note of. I coached in Israel, so I kind of know a little bit of what's going on, but talk to our players about this. They're the ones that are the generation that doesn't know. So the more we educate them, I think it's a factor. And then Coach Blatt, I want to ask you this because, you have your son. Hopefully he's doing well. What do you think we don't know enough about what's going on in Israel? For example, is that there is an Arab population that's in Israel that is peaceful. Is there something else, with Tamir and your family and your experience that maybe we don't know here that's going on over there that maybe we could pass along to our players or people in our families around here?
Much like the United States, unfortunately, up until this event, Israel has gone through a fairly long period of being a fractured society from a political standpoint. There are those that even claim that the reason this happened, that security failures happened because the government itself was not connected, not communicative, and was not concerned enough with problems of this nature. They were more concerned with infighting and with issues that were separating our communities. So, in terms of what's going on, and I said this in another video that I put out. It's kind of like from our history. You all know the quote, "United we stand, divided we fall." Actually, it's a Greek quote from thousands of years ago, but we've adopted it into America. And that's sort of the story of what's happened in Israel. People are just so divided that they really important, and that's looking out for one another. And we see it in our society every day. And I think this is it's a great discussion point for you with your players. And you mentioned that, and I should have said this, and I appreciate you picking up for me there, because that's another thing as coaches that we can do. And, I referenced it in communication, but talk to your guys about this situation. Use it as a lever to talk about cultural differences and the importance of cultural competency, of understanding one another, of communicating with one another, of knowing where we come from so that we can present to others a clear picture. And then, of course, acculturate to whatever differences that we have with them coming from their cultures. But these kind of subjects, they're a great thing to talk about with your players. Maybe it's when you go out to dinner as a team one night, or maybe it's in place of a video session, or a number of different opportunities to say, hey guys, you know what? I don't want to talk about boxing out today. You all know, you got to make the first contact, and the first 3 steps after you get the ball, they're the most important, going to offense or to defense. Shit, that important. Not compared to all this. So maybe you take half an hour and you just sit down and talk about world events. I think it's a great way to get closer to your players, and certainly a great way to educate them. And you can learn a few things by understanding what they actually value in terms of their experience in their society. For the most part, most guys, you look at them and this is their life. It's right here. It's 6 inches from their face, and they're looking in their phone, reading God knows what, or playing God knows what game. So educating them and giving them the opportunity, even if it's almost half pushing them to talk about some other things or make them aware of some other things. I don't know if there's anything more valuable than that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much for the question and for the response. One question that came through, and again, Coach, feel free to chime in, or if there's any other coaches that want to answer this. But one of the questions that came in the chat is, for the coaches that are on college campuses, have you seen any protests on your respective campuses? I can start. Just for me, I'm at Yale University. On Monday, there was a Yale Students for Palestine. They had a protest on Monday. And that later that night, there was a beautiful vigil with over 400 people hosted by our Yale University Hillel and Chabad House on campus, our Jewish student organizations, which was incredible. So those were 2 events that I know of that were happening on campus, not to mention our student organizations in Hillel, Chabad at Yale. We're offering a ton of support for students. Shabbat dinner, like I went to Chabad at Yale this weekend for Shabbat, and it was incredible. Probably the most people that I've ever seen at one of those dinners, which was amazing. And just, we received a lot of emails about increased security on campus and things like that. So really trying to make the students feel comfortable in their skin in being Jewish. But if any of the other coaches have any comments or anything about what they've seen on their college campuses, would love to hear it as well. Or Coach, if you've seen any in your neck of the woods, or just anything that you wanted to chime in on.
First of all, I got to tell you, it's not possible that we have 90 or 100 or 150 Jewish people online here and nobody's talking, particularly not at the same time. We say in Israel all the time, for every 2 Israelis, you have 3 opinions. So I'm shocked. Don't be shy. But maybe guys just have some more questions. Maybe they don't want to comment on a particular idea. But I talked a little bit about before, and I just want to throw this out there. And it's not that I don't know many of the folks here or haven't met over time. But I see Bruce Pearl here, who's obviously one of the great coaches in the history of college basketball, and he's a guy that never shied away from people recognizing him as a Jew or as a Jewish coach, and that kind of thing, people, is so inspiring to Jewish people around the world. It gives hope to so many of us, and gives us a feeling of appreciation and of self-worth. And Coach, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your who you are.
David, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you well.
I agree with everything you said, except the last thing you said about me being one of the greatest coaches in the game. That's bullshit. Hey, listen, thank you, David. Thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership. I've been following you, and you've been out front, and you give us all hope in a big, big way. And I am so blessed to be amongst my brothers here. And I go to work every day trying to I wear it on my sleeve. And I'm a Jewish basketball coach. And we've won some championships in the SEC. And you can kiss my ass. And there are a lot of people out there that don't like the fact that a Jew coach is winning. And you know what, Matt? Yeah, we had 20 coaches back in the day. Because you know what? There are only 25 of us. And I'm so proud of the fact that we have hundreds of Jewish coaches right now. Because the world saw David Blatt be the best coach in the NBA for a little while. And they went, wow, this can really happen. So listen, we're not here to do all that. Matt, what you did at Yale was important, going to Chabad, and going to Shabbat service. I had a meeting with our Hillel students. They just needed to be hugged. They wanted to cry. Their parents are home. We all have people that are over there, and they just want to commiserate with their brothers and sisters. So I would encourage every coach to have some sort of a breakfast or have some sort of whatever you can have, and open the doors to your Jewish students and let them talk and let them, they don't know what to do. And they're not equipped to fight the battle of defending Israel, which is a whole nother subject. And so I encourage you all, coaches, we're better teachers and we're better coaches because we studied. I went to Cleveland practice and watched David Blatt. I bought his films. We all learn, study Israel, study our history, read the Bible, and get yourself equipped so that you can be a leader and you can defend our return to the Holy Land, our right to exist, what is true and not true about Israel being an apartheid state and an oppressor. Like, for example, over half of every doctor and nurse and caregiver in Israel is not Jewish, they're Arab. And there are about 2 million Arabs living in Israel right now that are living a really good life with education and benefits and freedom of their own religion. And they serve in the IDF and they serve in politics. But there are about 1 million Palestinians or others that want from the river to the sea. And so you gotta be able to know that so that you can help the students on campus, kind of understand that. And so, guys, you're not alone. Thank you all for being on this call. Let your voices be heard. I can tell you that it's not always popular. I've already had discussion. I feel supported at Auburn, but I got to tell you, I've had discussion with university leadership already about how loud I've been, and trust me, they prefer me to be a little bit more quiet. And I've already told them that's not an option. And so we're all going to face, and I'm telling you, I feel supported. So I don't want to throw Auburn under the bus, but trust me, my president and my AD, they're getting plenty of emails going. And as soon as I lose a game, they're all going to be like, hey, shut up, dribble, and spend some time, just coaching basketball. But guys, we're fighting for our existence right now. As serious as you think it is, multiply it times 10. That's how serious it is right now over there in Israel. It just is. We can get through this. But we got to stay together. We got to be in prayer. We got to make sure that Big Brother United States, they move that carrier group in there as a deterrent, and hopefully they don't have to get involved. But if they do have to come to Israel's defense, they're going to have to. And so you cannot choose sides here. There's a battle of good and evil. Don't apologize for being on the side of good.
Thank you very much, Coach Pearl. I love your screen name as well. Tonight is it's perfect. But Coach, if any of you guys were able to attend our annual breakfast that we had this past year in Houston, you heard from Coach Pearl, and he gave one of the most motivating, inspirational speeches that I can recall about the Jewish people, about our resiliency, and he's been one of our biggest advocates for a very long time. And I think, like Coach Blatt had mentioned earlier, we're very lucky to have him part of our Jewish people and also part of the Jewish coaches. So thank you, Coach Pearl. I wanted to kick it over next to Mark Epstein. I don't see Coach Blatt.
Are you not seeing me?
Oh, I got you. Yep, I got you now. Okay,
yeah,
you're good.
My other computer went down, so I had to hook up another way. But as long as you got me, all good.
Yep, you're good to go. So,
besides the fact I had tears in my eyes when Coach Pearl was talking, I had to back out for a second. But I'm glad to be back.
Mark Epstein, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, Coach.
Good evening.
Good to see you again.
I see you, Mark.
I have a question for you. You've given me some great strength to move forward, and came at a really good time. So thank you, Matt, for putting this together and for inviting me. My question to you, Dave, is a personal one. How are you doing? How's your family holding up? Personally, is your family struggling? In which way are they involved and participating in possibly the military movement?
Well,
Sorry, I was curious.
Well, thank you, Mark. First of all, it's great to see you.
Good seeing you again, guys.
Thank you. My 4 children all now live in Tel Aviv. My son, who is a professional player from Maccabi Tel Aviv, my former team that I worked for 10 years, he currently is actually in Cyprus with the Maccabi team because they moved the whole team outside of Israel so they could play their EuroLeague games. Just to give the guys an idea, he's really struggling with it. You know, he's a kid that's got a big heart, and he very much cares for his, like we all do, cares for his family, but he cares for his country. And he's already done his 3 years of mandatory service. In his status allows him to play professionally, so he was not called up for reserve duty. He's doing his reserve duty as a basketball player, hopefully representing Israel and representing Maccabi and helping his team provide some respite or some entertainment or some joy from something else outside of the war. My 3 daughters also all served their mandatory 2 years. One of them was an officer in the Army, so she served 3.5. She just had a baby, so she's not doing reserve duty. The other 2 are volunteering and helping soldiers from their particular fields that they worked in when they were in the military. But they're all involved, all engaged, all in an apartment in Tel Aviv, jumping in and outside of the shelter when the sirens go off, which they do periodically in Tel Aviv. I would expect it's going to happen more as Israel begins their ground field work going into Gaza. So not comfortable, not at all at ease, very, very concerned for the people, and very, very sad about friends lost or families separated. But this, unfortunately, is a way of life. In Israel, I, as a dual citizen, have experienced it from both sides of the Atlantic, but for 35 years of living in Israel, I can tell you that, you know, you get numbed to it
at a certain point in time, but this particular situation is different. It's much more serious. It's something that reminds you of times of, okay, I wasn't in Israel at the time of the 6-Day War, and I wasn't in Israel during Yom Kippur War, but I was in two of the other wars, and it's a scary, very trying time for the people, and that's why we as Jewish Americans or Jews living outside of Israel can so greatly serve the country, because we're also serving ourselves. Israel is known as the homeland of the Jews. It's not the only homeland. I've always felt that it's not fair to consider Jewish people living in other parts of the world as not being in their homeland, because it is their homeland. Jewish people can represent and can offer respect to our community in many ways, shapes, and forms, and they're every bit as much important to our existence as Israelis living in the Holy Land. But Mark, it's really a trying time, and I can tell you, I spend the better part of each day not only watching the Israeli news, but also talking to people in Israel. If I were not suffering from MS, as many of you know that I am, and I was a little bit more mobile and able to assure that I could get up and down and go to the shelter when necessary and not put people out to have to drag my ass, here or there, then I'd be over there right now. And probably anyway, in the very near future, I'll go. But my family is there, and it's tough. Appreciate you asking, but it's a lot harder for a lot more people, and I'm glad that we're all talking about this so that you all know that in your own way you can contribute.
I'm praying for you and your family, Dave. Thank you. And of course, I'm praying. My heart and thoughts are with Israel and all Jews all over the world.
Thank you, Mark. Good to see you.
Good seeing you too, guys.
Thank you very much, Mark, for the question. All right, so we have a few more questions. I'm going to go to Shifty, and then Ethan and Dylan and Steve, but we'll start with Brian Schiff.
Thank you, Matt. On a call like this, we're all preaching to the converted for the most part, but as coaches, our number one thing is being teachers, as we know. And these days I work at this Quaker school in Pennsylvania. It's relatively new. It started in 1697. And the big thing about Quaker schools is everything's even Steven on everything. So we have this thing the other day called conscious communities, where we have there's a conscious community for every single group under the sun there. So they have a Jewish affinity group. So I asked if I could come, and of course they said yes, and I went. And first, only 2 kids walked in. I was really kind of surprised. There is a decent amount of Jewish population at the school. It's suburban Philadelphia school, where a lot of Jewish parents who want their kids to go to private school, that's where they go. So, but then all of a sudden, 25 kids walked in, and there wasn't any seats left in the room. But a few of people were saying, like Coach Pearl was saying, and like Dave was saying, kids just don't know. And the kind of settings they have at the school is that nobody really sets an agenda. They wait for people to start talking. So big mouth that I am, of course, I hate that uncomfortable silence, just kills me. So, after 10 seconds of nobody saying anything, I spoke up. I started telling them about my experiences of how many times I've been to Israel and all the things that we know from being there. And a few kids then talked after that. But again, what it is, as teachers, just the point is, we always say education is the key to everything. If somebody else said earlier, what people don't know, they don't know. So it's just so important for us to let people know what's really going on. And there's sometimes where there's not two sides, that there aren't good people on both sides, and this certainly is one of them. Yeah. And I'll just end by saying that, Coach Blatt, I'm glad you recovered from when in 1995 I brought that team to Kafar Bloom and we beat you. And so I am undefeated against an NBA coach, and that's all I'm saying. And I'm patting myself on the back for that.
Wow. Listen,
Matt, Howard, everybody, thank you so much for getting this together. This is incredible.
thanks for your words and for that fine memory that you've somehow managed to bring back into my consciousness, Howie. And Mark, I'm sorry that you brought me to this event. I thought I was going to be able to escape that, but no, that's okay.
You won a lot of other games after that.
Yeah, a few anyway, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much for those comments. So important.
Yeah, thank you, Shifty. All right, we got Ethan Kahn. Ethan, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
I just wanted to, wish you and your family the best with everything, and hoping that, I got a lot of Israeli friends that are over there right now that are, whether they're deploying or, waiting to be deployed, and it's a thought that, it's something that I will never have to do, hopefully here. And I just feel for them. So, but my question is, how do we, like the rallies at schools, how do we deal with that? And then, from the Jewish aspect, and then also being a coach somewhere, and then, social media, how do we use that in a positive way to really get people to understand what's going on? I know that IDF posts a lot of different things that are, that are for us factual. Some people might not think it is because it's coming from, an army, right? But my question is, like, what resources do you think are ones that we could be sharing and all that?
Well, I am not a multimedia expert. I've made it a point during the course of my career to sort of try and stay away from that stuff. Now I'm becoming much more involved. But if you have Facebook or if you have Instagram, post something saying what you feel without fear, without hesitation. Say, hey, you know what? I'm a basketball coach. This is what I do. I work with young men or young women or both, and I'm an educator. And I hope and I try to help find a way to give these young people or these people hope, or to give them an understanding of what's happening in the world. And this is what I think, and this is what I feel, and post it. This is really simple what I'm telling you, but let your feelings be known, or like I said, when you're getting interviewed, or you're talking for a game, or you're in front of your team, talk about these things. And I'm not even saying that you have to say, oh no, we shouldn't go now en masse into Gaza and just destroy 20% or 30% of the country, trying to develop more of a buffer between the villages in the south. You don't have to say those things if you don't feel that way, or if you're not educated enough about it. Although, as Bruce said, or was it said, you educate yourself about these things. There's power in education, but let your feelings be known, and let people know, hey, this is who I am, and this is what I believe, and if you like it, great. If you don't like it, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna say what I feel. I'm gonna talk in an educated fashion, and you can learn from it, or you can adopt it, or you can disagree with it. Because nothing wrong with disagreeing, until you get to the point of like what I talked about in terms of there's morality and there's ethic, but there is right and wrong within those things. And these are black and white issues in my mind. And there's nothing wrong with expressing that or saying that, publicly, in those ways or in other ways that you can think of. Just by sitting and talking to people, sitting down, you're having a drink or a Coke or whatever, and you're talking to people, and you can argue about stuff. You don't have to throw punches or anything like that, but there's nothing wrong with that. Just by making people aware. I mean, that's critical in my mind.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think some of it too that's hard to deal with is when I do post, there's some Jewish friends that are like, oh no, like are anti-Israel, which is really, really weird to me. And I'm trying to figure out a way of how to deal with that. I literally just had someone message me like 20 minutes ago about it. And I'm like, it just, to me, if Israel is gone, there's a, like it's tough. We don't have a home, so it's just trying to deal with that too. And all that.
Unfortunately, where a lot of the anti-Israeli sentiment comes from outside of Israel, it comes from the fact that Jewish people think, wow, Israel's getting me in trouble. People think because I'm Jewish that I'm Israeli. And of course, there is a distinct difference. You're American first, or you're, Spanish, or you're Greek, or you're Puerto Rican, or whatever it is. You can be Jewish and be from those places, and you strongly identify with that, and as you should. There's nothing wrong with that. But Jews around the world, not all, but there are some that say Israel causes me more problems as a Jew than it solves for me. Of course, in my mind, that's just nuts, but I'm just trying to give you an understanding of why you get that. And then you do have the Israelis who, have either lived a difficult life or, under difficult conditions because of the situation there, that they're just tired. They're beaten down. They're like, wow, why can't I just be American and live in Los Angeles and nobody bothers me, or nobody gives a shit, and those are real problems. I don't think they're nearly as significant as the survival of our people, long term, or of the threat to our people once enough of these crazies get into a position of either power or have banded together in such a way that without any real reason just want to attack the Jews. I mean, and that's happened today, and that has happened historically. We've gone through that for a lifetime. So that's why I say don't run away from it. Face it head on, and even those that are bad mouthing Israel. I mean, in my mind, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And you deal with people like that in every walk of life. They don't necessarily have to be Jewish. What great Albert Einstein, we quoted him before. He said, "There's two things in the world that are certain. One is the universe, and the other is human stupidity. About the universe, I'm sure. I'm not sure. Human stupidity is everywhere in every walk of life. You can't get away from it."
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks for your question, Ethan. So we've been on here for about an hour. I know Coach Blatt mentioned that he is flexible to stay around.
Very, very. As much as the guys and ladies, if there are some, I wish I could see a nice Jewish woman's coach. But if there isn't, anyway, I'm more than happy to talk as long as you guys want.
Well, we do have several women's coaches in here, and if anybody is able to just quickly scroll through on your computer, you can just see an incredible diversity of our coaches at all levels, all sides of the game, even inside basketball, outside of basketball. I think it's one of the incredible things that the Jewish Coaches Association has been able to do and reach so many great people. So yes, please keep the questions coming. And I want to next kick it over to Dylan for his question. Dylan, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, Coach. First of all, thanks for coming out and speaking to us. This is awesome and very, very enlightening to me. I'm gonna try and stay on one track with this question. It might be a little all over the place, but again, I have a lot of friends on kind of both sides that are for the Free Palestine side, as well as a lot of Jewish friends. And I have never been to Israel, and now it's kind of going to be more meaningful when I go, as now I'm kind of planning on going. But I'm hearing a lot of slander against the IDF. Is there a lot of Palestinian oppression in Israel? And I also keep hearing the term ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. And again, in my mind, I want to think that everything that Israel and IDF doing is right, and they're doing their best for the Jewish people, Israeli people, and just people overall. But from somebody that's seeing a lot of media on very different spectrums, I just wanted to hear from you and your experiences there on if there is a lot of fault on the IDF and kind of what's going on over there.
Okay, for those of you that don't know, when you hear IDF, it's Israeli Defense Forces, basically the Israeli military, but inclusive of all four parts of it, whether it be the Air Force or the Army or the Navy. Their special forces too. Your question is a very, very important one and a very, very complex one. I don't know that we have enough hours to really get deeply into the discussion. I will just say this, and you may have heard it in my little podcast that I showed you. You know, for me, I consider the Palestinian people and the Palestinian plight as part of this picture that has to be addressed and has to be considered. I said that has to be taken seriously and sensitively. Palestine as a concept and as a country, and again, I don't want to open a very, very long conversation. Historically, is the geographic area where Israel now exists as a country that was awarded to or given to the Jewish people in 1948 after the Holocaust as a place where Jews could make a homeland and try to recover from the murder of 6 million Jews, which at that time was half the population of Jews in the world. Now we're somewhere between 15 and 18 million, depending on how people view themselves. The IDF in its charter has no expression or no comment of destroying the Palestinian people. Neither do you have that in any charter on the part of the Palestinians. And the part of the terrorist groups, the first sentence that you will see in any of their charters or broadcasts or litany of materials is, we want to destroy the state of Israel and kill all the Jews. That's the most significant difference. There is a place and there is a desire to find an answer, whether it be a two-state solution, whether it be giving land or awarding land or partitioning another piece of land to the Palestinian people. Unfortunately, 80% of the Palestinian people are ruled by 20% of the two terrorist organizations that are in control of the territories. So trying to make peace with this group, these various and varied groups is very, very difficult. Nowhere is it in the minds, the hearts, or in the charter of the IDF to destroy, to kill, to maim, to torture, to take hostage Palestinian people. There's no desire to do that. There are a litany of other problems, and I'm the first to admit that. Today, the lack of trust is, and has been for quite some time, is so great that there's just no open, free, or sincere conversation between the Palestinians as a whole, particularly the Palestinians that are identified or identify themselves as extremists or as terrorists, not as terrorist organizations or as ruling parties in those territories. We're a long way from an answer, on a good answer on that. I don't say that things are always perfect. I don't say that the IDF or even the Israeli citizen is always perfect. There are naturally some strong disagreements, dislikes, distrusts, that lead to some very uncomfortable or unmanageable situations. And it's not good. It's not healthy. It's not pretty. It's not likable. It's not attractive, but the story is so deep. The hatred is so deep. The misunderstanding, the miscommunication, the mistrust is just so deep and runs so far back, and it has come to the surface again and again and again in a number of different ways that, when they make me the prime minister of Israel, I hope I can give you some good answers that will solve the problems of that region. Hasn't happened yet, but it might. We'll see. We'll see.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Dylan. Good to see you, man. I want to kick it over to Howard for a question or a comment.
Thanks, Matt. I wanted to read a comment from a friend of mine who just had to drop off the call. His name is Tom Nagorski. He's not Jewish. And David, he was a freshman when you were a senior at Princeton, and he tried out for basketball and got cut by Coach Kirill in a great Coach Kirill cut story. And he said that one thing he remembered about you was that you yelled at him once playing pickup basketball, but we don't need to get into that now. But he's been a journalist, a prominent journalist, has worked for ABC News and a lot of top news organizations for years. And he just wrote this to me. He had to jump off the call, but he said, I'm not jumping in as I'm neither Jewish nor a coach, but if I did, I would say this with great humility. A huge concern now should be the ignorance on campuses of the most prestigious universities in the U.S. and those who voice support for the Palestinians without a word of condemnation of Hamas or sympathy for its victims. So what I would say is this: when you speak to your friends and colleagues and players, be sure to say a word about the plight of the Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Make the point, as Joe Biden did the other day, that the vast majority of Palestinians don't condone what happens, and they are dying and suffering now. That doesn't need to be politically loaded in any way. It changes nothing about the core message here. It's just a human thing. And that acknowledgement alone is a way to distinguish yourself from those kids on campus or protesters in global capitals who have expressed so little empathy for the Israelis who were murdered last week. It will increase the chances that your point of view will break through.
Awesome.
It's great. Great. I'm sorry that Tom is no longer on the call. If I yelled at him, I'm sorry. Probably because he didn't set a good screen or he didn't pass the ball on time. I can't imagine it was anything else, but I sure as hell feel bad about it. If that's his memory of me, man, I didn't do a good job. I really didn't.
He's very impressed with you now, though.
I grew up, Howie. I guess I grew up.
Next question, we have Steve Mills. Steve, if you want to unmute yourself, ask Coach Blatt.
Hey, Matt. Thank you for having me. I come to this as a non-coach, but I come from my love for this guy, Dave Blatt. Dave and I have known each other since we were 17 years old, and 39 years ago he was in my wedding. So we have a lot of love and respect for each other. And just listening to this as a guy whose life has been shaped by basketball, coaches, the sanctity of the relationship between a player and his or her coach is really critical. And listening to everyone talk, I would just encourage for Matt or someone to come up with sort of 5 or 6 key points that during that moment where Dave talked about, where you say, we're not going to talk about pick and roll today. We're not going to talk about the zone offense today. We're going to talk about something that's bigger than that. And sort of these are the 5 points that a coach can talk to, especially points that serve as sort of places that can sort of disconnect the African-American community and the Jewish community and the shared experiences that we have. And I think that's one that we have to be careful about, letting a divide start there. Yes, sir. I remember that shirt. So I just think it's just a comment and a thought of how you communicate and connect with these guys and girls that look at their coach in a special way and a way to start a conversation and give them information so that they can then be advocates for what the truth is and what really is happening in the world. So just a thought listening, and I'm happy to have had an opportunity to listen in on this tonight. Thanks, Howie.
Coaches and guys, I'm sorry to jump in here. You know, I have tears in my eyes. I'm not a crier, but
Journalist too.
Excuse me for for breaking down a little bit. Steve is one of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. A former teammate, a longtime friend, and you know, when you talk about people that could maybe be, that certainly have already made this world a better place to live in, or could potentially solve some of the problems that are greater than all of us. He's one of those people, one of those guys. So I think he's retired, but if you got a chance to vote for him instead of any of these other jokers that are out there, I'd strongly suggest that you do, because he's one of those people. And God knows I'm fortunate to have ever had any connection to him, and love him as a human being and as an individual. Anyway, sorry for that.
That was awesome. Very, very nice to meet you, Stephen. Thanks for joining us tonight. All right, next, Ethan Gold. Ethan, feel free to unmute yourself and join us.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ethan. I'm with the New Orleans Pelicans here in New Orleans. Just in the spirit of making the world a better place and fighting something head on, my dad is actually working on a film to combat anti-Semitism called The Blind Spot. They've been traveling on to college campuses and are trying to get some influential figures as well to be part of the film and just really expose what's going on and make it well known and try to just continue the good fight. So I'll drop the his email address and contact information in the chat. And if any of you coaches or your students or players have been affected, feel free to reach out. They travel around, they interview, they're developing as much content and as many stories as possible. And I think it would just be a great help for everybody and another way to bring everyone together.
Bravo, Ethan. Wow, that's great. Great stuff. Great to see it too, man. That's awesome. I just became an ardent New Orleans fan. That's it. I didn't think it was going to happen, but it changed my mind. Good for you, man.
Also, quick tie to you, Stacey Holloway is a good friend of mine. Always had great stories about you.
Good friend, good person, basketball person.
Great basketball person.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ethan. And as I'm sure you guys can tell, there's a lot of great stuff happening in the chat. There's a lot of articles being shared, comments being made. So I'm pretty sure after the call is over, I can download the chat. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to summarize some of the articles, the resources being shared, and maybe can send it as a follow-up to everybody after the call is over. So continue speaking up in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Couple more questions. I want to kick it over to Jesse Pruitt now.
Hey everyone, Jesse Pruitt. I'm an assistant coach at Stanford. First, I want to say hello to my good friend Michael Wolf. When I first got into this business, he was one of the first Jewish coaches that I met. So Mike, it's great to see you. Some wonderful comments, Coach Blatt. Thank you for leading this discussion. First, I have a couple comments. I think we've got to remember as coaches, our student athletes really only know what's in front of them. What I mean by that is Matt made a reference to Dan Grunfeld a little earlier. You know, our players don't even know who Ernie Grunfeld and Bernard King are. So there's no way they know what happened in 1948 or what happened in 1967. So, when the attack happened on October 7th, I read the Facebook messages and Twitter messages and IG, and I right away combated a lot of my dear friends who were putting out false things, because I think people just don't know the history. And I think I share the sentiments with everybody that it's so important that we not just call people out, but we reach out to our friends. And it could be privately, it could be publicly, but I've done so. I've tried to engage with our players as much as possible. A couple things a couple trends that I've I noticed in print and but all conversation, a lot of young people align Black Lives Matter movement with Palestinian struggle. And we're seeing a lot of that, and people are choosing sides, and they see maybe they perceive Palestinians to have darker skin or they're being the oppressed, but there's that alignment that is happening. I also think if you look at other conflict that's happening in the world with Russia and Ukraine, there's a lot of young people that are comparing Israel to Russia. And in America, we've supported Ukraine as the underdog and supported them. So there's a lot of things that are fresh on young people's minds that they just look at Israel as the bully. And I think those conversations need to continue with our players and with students, just to educate them about just the history and being open, to having discussions. My question to Coach Blatt, and I've never been to Israel. I hope I get there soon. I hope that this game that we love so much takes me there. But in Israel, do Palestinians and Israelis compete in basketball? Are there club teams? Are there schools? Do they compete? And the second part of the question is, can we here in the States maybe look at sport as something in the coming months, in the coming years, to bring Israelis, Jews, Palestinians, people together using this beautiful sport to kind of help bring everybody together? Because right now it's so divided and everybody's choosing sides.
Yes, that's a great question and a great idea. There has been in recent years some attempts on the part of some good people to try to have events that engage or involve Israelis, particularly Israeli Jews, with Palestinian teams or organizations. Been very difficult just from a geographic standpoint to go in or go out of those places to make it happen. Not nearly to the extent that we'd like to see it in order to use our sport as a vehicle for change and for connection and understanding and the breaking down of barriers. So basically, no, but certainly that is a vehicle for the future to be able to promote that type of connection, that type of friendship, that type of bridge building. And I'd love to see it happen. There's nothing more than I would like to do to be able to go into Palestine, give a lecture to kids about basketball. I can't tell you that would be the thrill of a lifetime, but I don't know that it's going to happen. But certainly that's something that we could do, and that's something that could offer us the opportunity to make some changes. I mean, I know, personally, my whole career, I was so fortunate to be a part of many, many great teams and, have great assistants and work with great people that helped me to be successful in a number of different environments. But that, for me, when I look back and on my gravestone, I hope they say something like, yeah, he coached in a lot of different places with a lot of different good people and promoted the understanding and the culture sharing that really meant something. That's a long epitaph, but I'd like it to be that, because there's nothing more important than that at the end of the day. And to your point, the answer is basically no, but man, isn't that a good idea? Isn't that one of those things that potentially could bring about change? Timing doesn't offer us that at this point, but certainly would be a great starting point.
Coach Blatt, if you don't mind me jumping in here, when I was coaching in Jerusalem, I was riding the board of the West Bank. There was a group of people that I knew that would come from the West Bank and that worked in Jerusalem. And it was a basketball community that came together. It wasn't like publicized, but it happened from a waiter telling me this. And it was like 20 of us once a month. And it was a peaceful thing. There was no qualms. And it was just guys that were regular guys, and it was Arabs and Palestinians. West Bank coming up and playing at the YMCA where Tamir's at, like Tamir Goodman, and just playing. And it was super casual. And I don't know what's come of it, but that's the only thing I've heard of, and it was amazing just to have it intertwined, because there's a Palestinian pro league that's small, and some of those guys would come over, which is nowhere compared to Israel. But there's something there, Jesse. I don't know if you don't mind me jumping in, but that was something that I felt, and it was amazing to have that.
Couldn't, I was referring just to that. You're absolutely right, and I couldn't encourage that kind of thing more. Maybe that's the answer. At least a part of it. You know what I mean? Healthy and good competition, and people that are interested in something, that's sport related, and not all the other aspects of unfortunate aspects that we're running into right now. Is, it's an incredible opportunity to build bridges, and make connections and develop understanding and friendships. I couldn't encourage it more. Just right now, it's timing is not great for it, but man, those are great ideas, guys.
If I may just jump in quick, something we've talked about, me and my dad in a group called Athletes for Israel, is bringing creating a big college basketball tournament in Israel, something that brings some premier programs over there and play games in the interest of peace and whatnot. And my dad was actually thinking of naming it after a cousin of ours named Bobby Sand, who coached at CCNY back in the day. So there's something in the works if anyone's interested. And same email address, I'll drop my dad's. I'll even drop my phone number. But something when the situation allows, would love to try to get going.
Great ideas, guys. Wow, great ideas.
Awesome. We have a couple more, Coach Blatt. Just anytime you need to bounce, just let us know. We got this question came in the chat. This is from Jordan Freeman. So the question from Jordan is, Coach Blatt, what are your thoughts regarding the possibility of an intelligence failure within the IDF Israeli government, and why has Israel spent so much time trying to negotiate with a terrorist organization?
The first question, I can only guess. I'm not involved in those aspects of the IDF or of the country's defense systems. My conclusion is what I said before, is that we just let our guard down because we were too busy infighting political matters that were not specific to the security of the country. That's my opinion. And I can tell you a number of other theories that I've heard from people that are more knowledgeable on the subject than I am. But that would just be throwing out ideas that whether they have merit or not, I don't know. So I choose to believe it's that. I never thought that what's happening outside the court, so to speak, didn't affect what happens on the court. I really believe that. It's just like I'm hearing Travis Kelce say, I compartmentalize this whole thing with Taylor Swift. It doesn't bother me when it comes to playing football. And I was like really mad. I was like, that's not possible. And then I'm disagreeing. And then he goes out and has like 12 catches for 190 yards, So who the hell am I? Maybe he knows better than I do. But I do believe that what's happening on the outside affects what's happening on the inside. So if politically and socially the country is divided in such a way where people just aren't even willing to listen to one another, that is going to have an impact on deeper and wider issues. So that's my theory. That's the best that I can offer you. The second part of the question, please remind me, because it was a good thing, and I wanted to comment on it, which was
the second part was, why has Israel spent time trying to negotiate?
Why have they not, or why have they? Well,
Regarding what? Regarding the hostages, or generally speaking?
It just says, why have they spent time trying to negotiate with the terrorist organization?
Well, they did, at one time, the Israeli government came to agreements for supporting, even financially supporting, the Hamas organization, thinking that they could indeed do business with them going forward. They actually financially supported them as a way of allowing them to compete better with other terrorist organizations, and gain the upper hand. Just thinking, okay, make my enemy my friend or my pseudo friend so that I can influence him later. That worked out awfully badly, So, and negotiate. I mean, right now the head of the snake or the heads of the snake are terrorist organizations. You have no one to talk to. I'm sure behind the lines, deep down, there is some communication, trying to find partners that we can encourage to accept one another's existence and to make this a viable relationship in some way, shape, or form. And there are a lot of concepts on how different thoughts on how that should manifest itself. But outwardly, or in terms of dealing with the people that are ruling the territories, there's no viable partner right now, and that's why I said, and it's harsh, but when you have an organization or organizations that their only interest is in destroying, killing, and wiping off the face of the earth your existence, that there's not a lot you can talk about. You got to find those that you can talk to and hopefully help them to take over the leadership of that country.
Thank you for the question, Jordan. We have two more questions, and then I think we'll wrap things up for the night. Really appreciate Coach Blatt for his generosity in sharing with us, and for all the coaches that have reached out so far. So the last two are going to go to Eli and Mark. So we'll start with Eli. Please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask Coach.
Yeah, Coach Blatt, really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure.
It's not really a question. It's more of just, Coach Pearl talked about, the younger generation not knowing, and he said he went to the Hillel, and, all the students just, want to be heard and want to hug. And while I'm not still in school, I've done the graduate assistant. I'm a video coordinator now. I am still young, and, this has been, a lot. And, I find myself this week, like, super, not anxious, but super, it was a wake up call for me to see everything that happened in Israel. And I've been refreshing Twitter every 5 minutes, looking for different news. I've been looking at every Instagram story to, see, who's posted what. And, I've been on high alert for things being posted that are just not true, and, trying to connect those things. And, I feel like it served as a wake up call for me. I was lucky enough back in 2015, the summer 2015. Actually, I was on the plane during the finals. I'm from Cleveland, so I was on the plane during the finals heading to Israel. And I remember staying up at night watching the finals in Israel. And it was an Israeli advocacy trip, and we went to near Gaza, and then we toured the country, just learning about the importance of not just Judaism in Israel, but all religion in Israel, and really found meaning in that. And I think from my perspective, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I was very highly educated in it, and I try and continue to grow in the education of that. But I think I let myself get a little relaxed, and I let the politics of Israel and the things that I may not agree with, affect, I just thought, you know what, Israel is just another country that makes mistakes, that has problems just like the United States does and all that. And I let myself get relaxed. But I just wanted to, share that, like, this has been a wake-up call for me, to reinvest myself in education about Israel, about the conflict, about politics. And, just it's important. And, I was the only Jewish kid in my high school, and in college I had a lot of non-Jewish friends, and I'm the only Jewish person on my staff and in our program. So it's important for me to continue my education and growth, and educate the people that need to be educated. And I just really appreciate you talking. I appreciate Matt for getting this, and Howard for getting this call together. And this was important for me to be a part of, and I appreciate it.
That's great stuff, man. If we leave here with anything, that's a wonderful message, man. And several of the coaches have talked about it, and Stevie talked about it, and Howie talked about it. And I'm trying to mention, be prepared, educate yourself, know what you're talking about, and speak clearly, and whether it's loudly or convincingly or humbly, but know what the hell you're talking about, and you sharing those kind of messages, whether people agree with it or not, are more likely to resonate, when you have a good take on things or good knowledge of the situation. That's great advice. Good for you, young man. Good for you. Good luck in the profession.
Thank you, Coach.
It's tough. All right.
All right. I wanted to kick it over to Mark. Mark had a question. Mark Skelton.
Good evening. Hey, everyone. So two things. I think the first one, there's just this quote that I've been carrying around with me this week, and it's in darkness, a small candle can illuminate an entire room, and a small light can illuminate the entire world. So if you can find the light in the darkness, become it. I think what we're talking about tonight is, as coaches and as leaders, kind of following all the advice that's been given tonight. A year ago, because of the rise of anti-Semitism in New York City, I reached out to a local yeshiva. I coached non-Jewish players, and the bond that actually formed between my players and the local yeshiva, I would highly recommend, if you coach non-Jewish players, to find a Jewish school, and if you coach Jewish players, is to do the same thing, as find a school, a local, high school, and if you're coaching at the JUCO level or wherever you're coaching, and that bond as your team and the other team or a school, it's growing. And and so I'm going to take my team this year back to the yeshiva, but the conversation will actually be more about Israel, I can imagine. And as coaches, we definitely have to have this conversation with our team, as uncomfortable. And a lot of us do coach, not just African Americans or Latinos or Muslims, but we cannot hide from this stuff. It's been said over and over again. So I just want to leave everyone with that, and just go do something about this. We just can't sit back and stare at our phones.
Here, man. Wow, that's awesome, man. I'm gonna go light a candle right now. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mark. That was a beautiful quote, and definitely I wrote that one down, so I appreciate that. The very last question, this actually comes from a student, coach, so I wanted to ask it. His name is Paulo. He plays for one of our members, Coach Ryan Marks at St. Francis. And Paulo is a freshman, and he's from Italy, and he's not Jewish. But he wanted to ask, he said, "Good evening, Coach Blatt, and good evening to everyone. It may be easy to say for me since I don't have direct connections in Israel, but I believe that rallies should not be held in support of either side, but in support of peace, for stopping this war and for the loss of so many innocent Israeli and Palestinian lives. What are your thoughts on this? Thank you very much for your time.
Grazie, Paolo. Come stai, amico? Bravo. I think that's great, man. You know, along those lines, and it sort of touches on something that was said before. As part of your education, I want you all to know Israel as a country never started a war. They never attacked another country. They never attacked another people. All of their wars came as a result of attacks upon them and them responding in kind, and in many cases more than in kind. And unfortunately, that's what we're looking at and going to be looking at here in the upcoming moments. I don't condone it. I don't want to see what's going to happen. I know, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of suffering on a number of different levels and for a lot of different people. And this was all begun by this horrific terrorist attack on the people of Israel. But, many people will tell you there's a history to that. So who's to blame? I don't know. What's the solution? The solution is to find a way to gather some level of trust and some level of belief on the part of both societies that we can come to common ground on at the very least, respecting and allowing for the existence of our peoples in a normal world. But Paulo, I understand where you're coming from, and certainly, I encourage us to find a way to live like that. The leaders, particularly on that side right now, are not people that you can even talk to. There's no common ground, as is and was evidenced in these recent acts. The other side will tell you other stories, and I will tell you that most of them are as far from the truth as could possibly be. But okay, that's coming from me, and you know where I stand. But wouldn't it be great if we could just talk and just be willing to accept the better part of ourselves as human beings, and find a way to communicate and allow us to live and to breathe as normal humans. We're getting ready to go through a very tough time, people. So a big part of why I wanted to talk today was just to ask all of you, my good Jewish colleagues and friends, and my good non-Jewish colleagues and friends, to be aware, to be knowledgeable, to be educated about the situation, and to be on the side of humanity, be on the side of what's right and wrong, and hopefully together we can find solutions long term, because this is not going to be an easy period for anybody. And you yourselves have voices, and you yourselves can help, but you yourselves also have to be aware that when you do that, you're in the line of fire too. That's the reality. I mean, I know I am on a daily basis, but I don't care. I want to be. But even me, even though I'm as non-objective right now as can possibly be, because my family is under attack. I can just tell you that I hope, and I'm searching, and I pray for solutions that allow us to go forward, as human beings and as a human race, But prepare yourselves and educate yourselves, and be proud of who you are and what you are.
Yeah, thank you, Coach Blatt, so much for spending this time with us. I know, just speaking on myself personally, I've certainly followed your career and for a long time, and you've been one of the most successful, but also just one of the greatest voices in our community for Jewish coaches. And You know, it's great for young coaches to be able to look up to somebody like yourself and try to follow in your footsteps, but to be able to hear from you, share your experiences, what you've gone through, what your family has gone through, and to be able to educate all of us tonight, to me has been extremely impactful, and we just are extremely grateful for you and your time, and really appreciate the over 120 people throughout the course of the last 2 hours that joined in with us here. As Coach mentioned, Jews, non-Jews, people from throughout the profession and throughout the world. The Jewish community is a very tight-knit community, as we all know. When something happens to one of us, we all feel it. And so I really want to just leave everybody letting them know that we're here for you guys. We are always here. Myself, the other members of the community, we're here. So, you know, the outpour of support that we've seen has been incredible. And you know, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are hoping to do another Zoom call later this week on slightly a different topic, but still just creating a forum and an opportunity for us to come together as a group and share. So that's what the JCA is all about. And we just are really grateful. Again, Coach Blatt, thank you so much for your sharing and your knowledge.
Just in 30 seconds, I just want to thank everybody. Thank everybody for hearing me and sharing with me their thoughts. You all made me better, and I'm appreciative to all you guys. Forget thanking me. I didn't do anything. I appreciate all of you, and I wish you all the very, very best. And Matt, again, my offer stands for when the time is right. I'd be more than happy to talk basketball with the guys, because that's what we love, and hopefully that's what serves humanity in a better way. But thank you all. Really, thank you.
Hey, David, are you there?
Hey, man.
Are you there, David?
Yeah.
Okay, I just don't want you to get mischaracterized by one guy that you yelled at, okay? Because those that know you, 45 years ago, you took me under your wing when Bob Duquette and Coach Carrill put me with you. And you might have yelled at one guy, but you changed my life forever. And I'll always be grateful.
Thank you, man. Love you. It's good to see you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Slice, you're the best.
Well, I love how we leave you, and that's why I got on tonight.
There you go.
Thank you, everybody, once again for joining us. Please stay well, stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Night, everybody. Thanks, Dave.
Good night, man.
Yeah,
Shalom.
everyone.
Shalom.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you.
Laila Tov.
Stay safe,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Laila Tov, Am Yisrael Chai.
Coach Blatt.